Welcome to Tech Primers. In this particular video, we are going to see how to use Elasticsearch. So in my previous video, if you notice, I would have used Elasticsearch along with Spring Data so that it comes up as a single instance inside a Spring Boot application. So basically, a Elasticsearch instance is wrapped inside a Spring Boot application using Spring Data. But in this particular example, we are going to use how to use the raw Elasticsearch, which is running as a separate process. So how can we access the data from that process indirectly using the REST endpoint? So there is something called transport client, which Elastic itself provides as a jar dependency. So we are going to see how to use that from a Spring Boot application to call an external Elasticsearch service. So basically I have a Spring Boot application which is running. So from this particular application, I'm going to call a Elastic instance which is already running there in a different port. So we are going to insert, update and delete the data. So let's get started, right? So what I have done is I have already downloaded the Elasticsearch instance. So I have just downloaded the Elastic search and then I have extracted in a folder for so that we can start. So meanwhile, before we create the project, let's go ahead and start that, right? So I have the terminal here. So if you notice here, I am already there in the Elasticsearch folder. So I'm inside the bin. So I just need to start the Elasticsearch this way. So I'm just starting the Elasticsearch server. So what happens is when this particular server comes up, it comes up in two different ports. So one is specifically for accessing for the HTTP client, one is for the transport client. So if I quickly go and do a localhost colon 9200, so this is where the Elasticsearch HTTP server will be running, and there will be another port which will be 9300. So this is where the transport client will be running. So let's check that after the Elasticsearch instance is up, but that is coming up. Meanwhile, let's go and create our skeleton, right, for our Spring Boot application. So I'm going to create a com tech primers and say Elastic. So I'm going to name this particular application as Elastic Standalone Elastic Example. Okay. So I'm going to just use the Spring Web. So I'm not going to use anything extra. We are going to add Elastic dependencies separately. If you put Elastic here, this is going to bring the Spring Data Elastic. If you see here, Elasticsearch and Analytics Engine, including the Spring Data. Let's not do that. Let's add that separately. So let's go ahead and create this project. Okay, save it in downloads. Okay, it has got downloaded. Let me unzip the project so that we can open an IntelliJ. So the project is unzipped. Let me go and open an IntelliJ. So what did we name our project? Elastic Standalone. Standalone Elastic example. Yeah. Okay, let's open that in the IntelliJ. I'll just maximize it. So if you notice here, has it come up? Let's go to the URL and check if it has come up. Yeah, the Elasticsearch instance has come up. If you notice here, if I hit the localhost 9200, it is giving me a response. So this is basically telling us that Elasticsearch instance, which we started separately, has come up. Okay. Now let's go to the 9300 port. If I do a refresh, I won't be able to do anything because that is not allowed to do HTTP request. However, that port also is running. Okay, so using that port we are going to connect and pull the data, because if you want to do any REST call, you can use this directly. If you are creating REST endpoints and if you are creating JSONs directly, then you can use this 9200. But if you are using the transport client which the Elasticsearch gives, so if I open the documentation of Elasticsearch, they are giving something called transport client. Okay, so if we can use that, and then we can easily get the data without even having to do REST endpoint. So internally it uses some similar communication layer to get that from the Elastic layer, from the Elasticsearch. Okay, so the project has come up in IntelliJ. So let's go ahead and create some REST endpoint, right? So using Spring MVC. So basically one of my viewer here requested to create a Spring MVC application which will directly connect to the Elasticsearch and get the data. So for that purpose I'm going to create and show him using a SpringBoot or a Spring MVC REST endpoint. Okay, so I'm going to use Spring MVC. So I'm going to create a REST endpoint. I'll just create it as the resource. Okay, I'm just going to say users resource just for our simplicity. Okay, so this is going to be a REST controller, so I'm going to mark it as REST controller. It's going to be running at users slash REST slash users. Okay, so this is what the REST endpoint is going to be. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to expose something called I'm going to say object for now. So get, first I'll say insert, right? Okay, so in that case we'll just blindly insert some data and I'll just do a get. Okay, so here I'll say get. Okay, just for our sake. So what we are going to do here is we need to now use the transport client to access the Elasticsearch instance. So for that what we need to do is we need to add Elasticsearch dependency into our project. So right now we don't have any Elasticsearch dependency, so we need to add the Elasticsearch dependency. So what I'm doing here is I have created some live templates in IntelliJ so that I don't have to type everything again. So I have created some live templates. So if I'm using some shortcuts or something like this, don't get amazed. So it's a live template. So basically I have just uh, used this particular code piece of information and then I have just stored it as a template so that I can reuse it across. So you can also try when you are typing something which you use very often, so you can create that as a live template. So if I select this, right, I can do something like this. So I can go and save as a template and then you can give some name to it so that you can use it next time. Okay, so that's what I have done. So what we are doing here is we are going to add a dependency to Elasticsearch. Okay, I'm just saying org Elasticsearch. So Spring Boot already has some Elasticsearch dependency. I'm just putting that out with the version number 5.0.0. Okay, so the transport client version which I'm going to use is 5.0.0, and also let's add a property called the Elasticsearch dot version saying 5.0.0. So this is what Spring will be using, Spring Boot will be using to get this particular guy, so the main Elasticsearch dependency. Okay, then we need to add the Log4j dependency. So the Log4j2 we need to add. So I'm using the Spring Boot 1.5 version, so I need to use Log4j 2.7. If you are using a lower version of Spring Boot, say 1.4, then you have to use 2.6.2 because there is a breaking change inside the Log4j in 2.7. So it is better to use uh, Spring Boot 1.5 with 2.7. Okay, so we have added the dependency for our project. Now let's go and start writing the client code, right? So what I have done is I have created again same REST template. I have created a live template. Okay, so what we have done here is we are creating a transport client. Okay, this transport client is basically nothing but provided by Elasticsearch. Okay, so we are using this transport client to create a communication layer between our application and the port 9300. Okay, so basically this is creating a client connection between the server which is there in 9300. So I think it will ask for method. I'll just say method signature. Okay, so what we are doing in the first line is we are just creating a client. Okay, we are creating a client request, and using the client request we are going to inject some data. So what I'm doing is I'm going to say prepare index. So what this will do is this will create an index for us. Okay, this is going to create an index using called employee, and the type will be ID, and then my index will be 1. So I'm just saying that insert the data into employee slash ID slash 1. So if I go to the URL here, if I type that employee slash ID slash 1, I'm not going to get any data. If you see here, found is false. So basically there is no data inside Elasticsearch for that particular index, type and the value. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create an index and put the data which is here. So basically I'm creating a JSON builder and I'm saying name is Ajay, salary is the 1200, and then team name is development. Okay, and then finally I'm just getting that response back. So what we can do is we can just print some response, right? So we can even send some response back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say response dot get result dot to string. Okay, this is going to be a string response. So if we hit this particular REST endpoint, it is going to create a index with this client, and it is going to give the response for us. So let's go ahead and start the process, right? Okay, so if you see here, this particular application will be running in a different port, and the Elasticsearch is already running in a 9200. So we are having a standalone Elasticsearch instance, and we are accessing that from a client. So this can be a normal Java application or a Spring Boot application or any other application. So I'm just showing it in a Spring Boot application so that you can relate it to the latest and the greatest stuff which is out there. Okay, so if you see here, the application is come up in the port 8080. So let's go ahead and hit 8080, and also we created the REST endpoint, right? Slash users, REST slash users, and also we have the get. So as a part of get, this is going to create our new index with the values which we provided as a JSON using the JSON builder. Okay, if you see here, the response which we got from the get is created because that is what we asked our REST endpoint to return. Okay, basically it created a client, and using the client it created an index. So let's go to Elasticsearch and see that index, right? If you notice here, previously it was showing as found as false. Now if you see here, the found is showing as true, and the source is returning what is there inside the Elasticsearch instance. So we have name, salary, and team name. That is what we injected here, right? That is what we injected here. That is what has got injected automatically. So if you want to get the complete data, so you can even do response.get source, get result. I think it is inside get results. I'm not sure. So you can do that and get the response. Oh, so basically I can do get response. Actually there is a different code for that. So let's write. So this is whatever response which we wrote right now, it's just for creating an index, right? However, we want to, let's say, only view the users. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a new REST endpoint. So I'm going to just say view for our purpose, right? So I'm just going to say map of string comma object. Okay, okay, this is going to return us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the template again. Okay, so this is the code which we need to use. So basically you need the client. So let's move the client to, we need to clear the client, right? So let's move the client to the constructor, right? Okay, so I move the client code to the constructor so that we can use the same client across our REST endpoints. So what we have done is I have created a new endpoint called view so that we can get the response back for whatever ID we give. Okay, so we can even pass the ID. So let's say I pass the ID here, right? So I'm going to do a path variable. Okay, and I'm just going to use that so that we can view it. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are using the client to do a prepare get. If you notice, when we created the index, we said a prepare index, and now we are using prepare get. So once we do a prepare get, we get an object of type get response, and using the get response we can do a get source to get the whole object back. Okay, so basically this will return the JSON message. So I'm just going to say get response dot get source. Okay, so this should return us our response back. So previously when we did a create using the get, what we did is we got the created response, right? So in here, okay, one second. Okay, let this come up now. So what we did here is we are now using the map to get that whatever response we got. So previously we did a create, we got only the response. Basically we just got the result and then we saw whether it was created or not. Now we are going to get the complete JSON message from the get response object. Okay, the server is up now. So let's go and hit the REST endpoint. So what is the REST endpoint? User slash, what was it? View slash id, right? So I'm going to say view slash 1. So if you notice here, I just gave view slash 1 and I see only the JSON message. So basically we got the direct source information which is there inside the REST endpoint, and I got only that. So if you not notice that the Elasticsearch gives additional information, we don't require that, and we are going to pull only the source information, which is what we have done here. Okay, so this basically we are accessing Elasticsearch standalone instance via a Spring MVC application. Okay, SpringBoot Spring MVC application. Okay, using the transport client which Elasticsearch provides. Okay, that's what we have done here. So next, what we can do is we can update our um data, right? So I want to just update some data inside the existing REST endpoint. Okay, let's say I'm going to say update. So I'm going to say update. So I also have a template for it. So this is the code which we will be using for the update. Okay, so we need to create a update request. So this is also coming in from Elasticsearch, if you see. Okay, you need to create an update request, and in the update request we have to set the index, which is our employee, and what is its type, which is id, and what is the id which we need to update. Okay, so we can even give the id, we can even pass the id actually. So what I will do is I'll just pass the id so that we can update whatever we need. Okay, I'm just passing the id so we can pass that, we can add that. So I'm just updating the value of gender male, okay, into that particular id. So for now I'll just pass one only because we have only one data. So in future I think I will modify this. Let's modify this, right? I'll just modify this as insert. Okay, I'll just insert the same name for our reference, but I'll just insert new id so that we can see. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll add id here. So this we have already created one, we have already created. We are now not going to use one, but later if you want to use one we can use it. Okay, so in the update REST endpoint what we have done is we have done blah blah blah. So okay, so we created an update request with the new JSON which we want to add. Basically this will append the data into the existing JSON. So if you see here, this is our existing JSON. The data which we have here, gender male, that will append into this particular in that particular source. Okay, so and the command to do that is client.update, and we have to pass the update request. Okay, and if you want to get the data back again, you do a get, so we get an update response. So we just need the status. So I'm just going to return the status, so I'm not going to do anything else here. In fact, I can do a return here itself. Okay, I'm just going to return the status, and else I'll say exception. Okay, so status is rest status. I'll just do a toString. This should fine. This should be fine. So we have a REST endpoint called update now. Using that update, we are going to update a particular field. Basically, we are going to append a particular field inside the existing JSON skeleton. Okay. So I just started my application. Let's see. So the application is up. So before updating it, let's see the view again. So the view is still the same. So I'm going to do an update for 1. So this is going to add male for us. So I'm just going to say update 1. So the response gave as okay, the status is okay. Now let's go to the view and see what data it has got inserted. Okay, if you notice here, the gender got inserted. So this is now using the update. If you notice here, I just added some logs also. I have added some std out, right, standard out. So if you notice here, you can see that. So basically using the update request, we have used the transport client, and we have updated the existing schema to add some additional data into the Elasticsearch instance. Okay, so that is how you do an update. So what we have seen till now is we have used the insert to insert, we have done a view to view what is there, and we have now done an update. So finally let's do a delete, right? I'll say delete, same way I'll add an ID. So I'll add a path variable. Sorry. So for delete also I have a template, so I'll use that delete response. So if I see that this is the code which deletes it, so that deletes the data from that instance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the ID, so from that employee, so we are going to delete that particular employee ID. Okay, and we are going to finally do a get result and then give that result. And get result, if you notice, is a is of type result. So this can be null if the data is deleted, if the data is not there. So we'll do a .toString and we can return this. I'll just move this down. Okay, so the delete is straightforward. So we just call the prepare delete function inside the transport client with the index and the type along with the data which we want to delete. Okay, in our case we are going to delete the I think the spelling is wrong here. Okay, so we are going to delete the ID1. Okay, let me restart the application so that we can perform a delete. Let the application come up. Okay, this is up right now. Let's go to the view once. If you see, the view is this. Same way I'll go to the Elasticsearch and see you show you. See, if you see Elasticsearch, this is how it looks, and this is our REST endpoint. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to do the delete, right? We are going to say delete. I'm going to say delete one. So this, if you notice here, the response is deleted. It did it very quickly. And if I do a REST endpoint, there is nothing returned, right? Because nothing is coming. So if I refresh this particular URL, if you notice, Elasticsearch is not returning me anything because there is nothing. We have deleted it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert one. So we added one new REST endpoint, right, called insert. So I'm going to insert one. So if you notice here, it has created. So now if I do a view, yeah, it has got created. Let's go to my REST endpoint which I created. If I do a view, yeah, I have it. Now if I do an update, this is going to update my data. So if you say it's saying okay, and if I go, it should say male, yeah, gender male. If I refresh in Elasticsearch, that is also returning, adding that also has the data called gender male. Okay, finally I want to delete this. I just say delete, it's deleted. Okay, and this should not return anything, and this will not have any data as well. Okay, so that is how you do create, update and delete using a standalone instance. So we start the standalone instance. If you notice here, this is the standalone instance. So if you see, there are lots of logs. It has been, it has created its node. Right now it is running in my local machine, right? So it is having only one node, but you can create or host it in a separate server, and then you can use it across. Okay, so what we have done here inside the code is we have added dependencies for the Elasticsearch. If you notice in the POM, we have added dependencies to the Elasticsearch instance. We have added dependency to the Elasticsearch client, which is called the transport client. So we have to add the transport client jar. Then we have added the necessary log4j, which is required by Elasticsearch to make our application work. So then what we do is we create a client. So what I have done is I have added in the constructor. So when this particular controller is initiated, so this particular client will be created, and the client is using the transport address of localhost with the 9300 port. So as I said earlier, Elasticsearch will start with two different ports, 9200 for HTTP request and 9300 for socket request. Okay, so we are going to use the transport address for socket address. So this particular jar dependency uses the socket to get the data. It doesn't use HTTP. Okay, so in order to insert the data, we have to use the prepare index, and then we have to pass the index information and also the JSON message, and then finally you can get the result out of it. So in order to just view the information, you can do a prepare get with the same index information, and then you get that, and then you say get source. It will give only the source information from the Elasticsearch instance. To update, we have to create an update request and then give that update request to the client.update, and that will be updating the complete that will be updating or injecting basically the new field inside the existing JSON message. Basically it's updating your message. Okay. Finally, delete operation. So delete operation can be done using the prepare delete of the transport client. So we have to pass the index type and the ID. So that is how you delete. Okay, so that is how you access a standalone application from a Spring MVC application. Okay, so this is how it is. So if you have any doubts or queries, you can drop in a comment below. I'll just push this code into GitHub and you can use the same code. I'll give the link of the GitHub repository in the description below. Basically, if you go to github.com/techprimers, you can see all the repositories of all the examples I have created in these videos. So you will see lots of repositories actually. So if you notice in the GitHub a link, so you can go there and download this particular code as well. So if you notice, I have 20 repositories, so you can download these examples and try it out. The only thing is you have to start your Elasticsearch instance, but Elasticsearch is open source, so you can go and download it from the Elasticsearch website. Also they have good documentation. I also read through the documentation and tried it out, and that is how I was successful. So that's it for this particular video. If you have any doubts, or if you want to me to cover any particular topic, drop that in the comments below, so I'll try to do that. For example, this particular video I have done based on a user's suggestion. I'll try to do it if I'm able to do it. Okay, that's it for this particular video. See you again in the next video. Thank you.